I've lived there ever since. So over many years I've had a front row seat and been able to watch Hong Kong's development and indeed Hong Kong's progress. Of course, 2020 was a very important year for Hong Kong, the enactment of the National Security Law, and it's important to emphasise that prior to that time, Hong Kong, since 1997, had lacked any proper means of defending its national security and indeed the national security of the country. And it may be useful if I strike a historical note. When the National Security Law was enacted in 2020, many foreign countries claimed that it breached the Sino-British Joint Declaration, which had been signed between Margaret Thatcher of the UK and Deng Xiaoping of China back in 1984, and which created the circumstances for Hong Kong's eventual reunification with China, and it embodied the one country, two systems policy. Now they said that the National Security Law had breached that Sino-British Joint Declaration, which was nonsensical and showed they hadn't actually studied it, because the Sino-British Joint Declaration said nothing about national security for a very good reason. Both Margaret Thatcher and Deng Xiaoping acknowledged that national security was purely a matter for China, just as national security in the UK was purely a matter for the UK, and it wasn't for the British to seek to interfere in a matter which was part and parcel of Chinese sovereignty. So that was why the Sino-British Joint Declaration said nothing about national security, and it was left to China to handle that in its own way. And it handled it in its own way, of course, when the basic law of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region was enacted 6 years later. And this contained a remarkable provision, Article 23, which made clear that Hong Kong on its own could enact its own national security laws. And there was a similar provision also in the basic law of the Macau Special Administrative Region.